بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين، واللعنة الدائمة الأبدية على أعدائهم أجمعين لا قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم my beloved ones ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'm traveling, so that's why we'll try our best to take as much as possible. So I said we should not miss a session. Last week also we missed, I think so, and 2 weeks of Muharram we missed. So let's bring the momentum back, at least if we can take, excuse me, because all when you're traveling, so you're not that much focused. But let's try to see if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps, and the 12th Imam Ajalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif is with us. So Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we have stopped in an area which we were discussing about ihtiyat. So we spoke about the ijtihad, like knowing the religious ruling. We spoke about the taqlid, and now we are going to talk about the ihtiyat. So what about ihtiyat? Can we say it is wujub tariqi? So he says that no, we cannot say it's wujub tariqi. We said that first of all, tariqi, you need to have a religious evidence. A religious evidence, authentic religious evidence. The wording of the religious evidence, you are confused. Is it tariqi or mawdu'i? So if you remember the difference between tariqi and mawdu'i, again, I'll give you the moon sighting issue. The moon sighting, can it be tariqi or it could be mawdu'i? Like the narration says, sumu li ru'yateh, fast for its sighting. Waftaru li ru'yateh, break your fast, that means do your Eid on its sighting. So now sighting is compulsory, that without sighting the moon, literally you cannot enter the holy month or you cannot exit the holy month. Or no, that's mawdu'i. That's when you say mawdu'i, that is because it is exactly required. Like many of the ulamas in the old times, they had considered it to be mawdu'i. But then for Sayyid ALKHOEI Quddas Sirro and his students, it's tariqi. What does that mean? That means even that the main thing is you need to know that the moon is in the sky in a way it can be sighted by naked eye, not by telescope, to the majority of the scholars, with respect to those scholars who allow telescope. For them, it is more tariqi. That means just the moon, the birth of the moon, in a way it can be sighted. Now sighted by telescope, by naked eye, it doesn't have any issue with them. But the majority of the ulamas, they want to stick to the preciseness of the text. The text says ar-ru'ya. That means ru'ya, what was the norm in that time? With the naked eye. So if it was ru'ya with anything, if there was any indication allowing the umum and the flexibility and the generality in the evidences, they would have taken it. But it is precise sighting, and precise sighting is naked eye. Now their argument can come, okay, that time they did not have telescope in this. So things can go left and right. So to understand the methodology at this level of those who considered to be sighted by naked eye, so they said, if tariqi, if astronomer tells you that the moon is there in your sky in a way it can be sighted by naked eye, but due to reasons you were not able to sight it. So if the words of astronomer gives you satisfaction or knowledge, then you have to follow your knowledge. then you don't have to see the moon. This is based on tariqiyya. That means sighting the moon is tariq, is a path, is a mean. In mawdu'i, sighting the moon was not precisely needed. Just a refresher, okay? Let's move on. So is ihtiyat, when we say you have three wajibs, either ijtihad, either taqlid, either ihtiyat. So is ihtiyat obligated based on mawdu'i, that ihtiyat precisely is required, or tariqi? So the argument was that the tariqi and mawdu'i, when do you argue? When there is a narration, an obligation has been proven, but then you are doubting in the wording of the narration. Is it mawdu'i, tariqi? But here, ihtiyat was a production of intellectual evidence. Remember, it was dalil aqli, not dalil shar'i. So if dalil aqli does not give you wordings, dalil aqli gives you direction. The intellectual evidence or the reasoning gives you direction, logical reasoning. Okay, does not involve with wordings. Wordings are related to text. So if there's no wording, then there's no issue of tariqin mawdu'i. As we say in logic, saliba bintifa al-mawdu'. That means it's negated. Okay, the predication is negated because the subject is not there. Mawdu' is subject. Remember, Zaid is a scholar. Zaid is subject, as you took in logic, just a refresher, is a scholar. Zaidun alimun. Zaid is a scholar. Is a scholar is predicate. So let's say there is no Zaid, then there's no need to predicate. You see, salib negated. So the predication is negated by negation of Zaid. There is no Zaid. Which Zaid? What are you talking about, Zaid? We don't have anybody in Hausa and Zaid. You're talking about Zaidun alimun. Okay? So when I say, is Zaid alim? We don't have any Zaid. So forget about being alim or not being alim, because the foundation is not there. The subject is not there. So how can you predicate and there's no subject? So they call it in our mantiq language, saliba, negated, bintifa al-mawdu', because the subject is not there. So the predication is already negated by default. Okay, there's no, we can't predicate. So here, when we come to ihtiyat, so the argument is it wujub tariqi? Baba, what wujub tariqi? Tariqi mawdu'i. We argue if ihtiyat was proven by narration and we did not know ihtiyat is required by itself or ihtiyat is a means to gain the knowledge. Here, we don't have any dalil shar'i, clear evidence indicating that we have to do ihtiyat as one of the obligated options besides ijtihad and taqlid. Okay, so if this is clear, then here Sayyid ALKHOEI Amadullah says, وَأَمَّا عَدَمُ كَوْنِهِ وُجُوبًا طَرِيقِيًّا. He says it's not wujub tariqi. It's not wujub tariqi. Why, Sayyidina? Why? فَلِأَنَّ الْمُرَادَ بِهِ مَا وَجَبَ لِتَنْجِيزِ الْوَاجِبِ أو التعذير عنه. So the ihtiyat here in this case, it makes the obligation either with accountability or excusability. Now, if those who studied ilm al-usul halaqa al-ula, we have mu'adhdhiriyya and munajjiziyya. What is munajjiziyya? Munajjiziyya is accountability. That means if I got knowledge that alcohol is haram, then this hurma becomes munajjaza. What does that mean? That means I'm held accountable on the day of judgment. I can't say, Allah, I did not know. So that is tanjiz al-uquba. That means the punishment or the accountability becomes inevitable. So inevitability of the punishment or the accountability. So this is munajjiziyya. Mu'adhiriyya, ma'dhur, as in Urdu say mazirat khwa, udhur, like in Persian the uzn nadari. So there is no excuse. Ma indak udhur, udhur ma indak. Indi udhur, you have an excuse, you don't have an excuse. So here, mu'adhiri means excusability. That means you drank, God forbid, something, later on you found out it was alcohol. So now you can say, Ya Allah, I did not know it was alcohol. I drank and later on I found out. So here you have the aspect of excusability. So you are excused. You will not be punished. You will not be held accountable. So if you understand these two words, accountability and inaccountability, or accountability or excusability, whatever words you want to say in English, I'm not worried about the being too much precise of those genres. The main thing is the concept is understood. That munajjiz means I am held accountable because I knew it is wrong and I did it. Mu'adhir means I'm pardoned because I did not know. And obviously, when you go into the detail, there's Jahil Muqassir and Jahil Taqsir and those kind of things we are going to study future. At this point, he says the meaning of wujub, فَلِأَنَّ الْمُرَادْ بِهِ احتياط is wajib here, is ما وجب لتنجيز الواجب أو التعذير عنه. It is because the evidence has made ihtiyat one of the three obligations. That means if you don't do taqlid, don't do ijtihad, you have to do ihtiyat. So if it is one of the wajibs, if these two are not done, this is compulsory. So your ihtiyat, if you don't do it knowingly, then you will be held accountable. If you don't do it, okay, unknowingly, you have the excusability, pardoned. So فلأن المراد به وأما عدم كونه يعني عدم كون الاحتياط احتياط is not وجوب طريقي. Why it's not وجوب طريقي? Because the meaning of احتياط here is what has been obligated to make the obligation accountable, okay, which has the aspect of accountability and excusability. So the whole idea is the wajib which I'm going to do by ihtiyat, I'm going to be held accountable. If I don't do it out of ignorance, am I going to be pardoned? So this is what the discussion is about. That when we say wujub tariqi, the ihtiyat based on wujub tariqi is something which has been obligated. Okay, that means we have evidences obligating ihtiyat. And then we are discussing the route of tariqi and mawdu'i. So we said that it is dalil aqli. So it is not about the textual evidence. So he says, وَلَيْسَ الْإِحْتِيَاطُ مُنَجِّزًا لِلْوَاقِعِ بِوَجْهٍ. Ihtiyat does not make the obligation with accountability at any cost. Why? As it is going to be understood later on, لما سيأتي من أن الأحكام الواقعية إنما تنجزت بالعلم الإجمالي أو بالاحتمال. So we have hadith makes something wajib, moon sighting. But this then we discuss, now the moon sighting is wajib. There is munajjiziyya and mu'adhiriyya. Why? Because the narration given to me tells me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to observe moon sighting in reality. Waqi' means reality. Al-hukm al-waqi', that means the real hukum. So I have to uphold to the waqi'. How will I know the waqi'? Because the evidence indicated that Allah wants me to do that. So now the question comes in, is it tariq or mawdu'i? Here I have probabilities here. I have greater probabilities and lower probabilities, or equal probabilities, or no, I have ilm ijmali. That means confused knowledge. I have the knowledge that one of them is alcohol, but which one of them I'm confused. So confused knowledge, knowledge with parts of its components are confused. Like two things, I know one of them is son of Fulan, but I don't know which one of them is the original son and which one is fake son. So how should I distribute the inheritance? You see? So there are so many cases of ilm al-ijmali. Ilm al-ijmali means the obligation, the knowledge which has confused elements or doubtful elements. So he says, وَلَيْسَ الْإِحْتِيَاطُ مُنَجِّزًا لِلْوَاقِعِ بِوَجْهٍ. The precaution is not obligatory in a way. It gives you what? Munajjiziyya and mu'adhiriyya. It doesn't give you like that. It's not narrated. We said that it is based on intellectual argument, intellectual evidence that one of the three options to know your religious responsibility, to have the knowledge, is either ijtihad, either taqlid, either ihtiyat. He says, okay, taqlid, you have the knowledge based on the knowledge of the mujtahid. Mujtahid, he has the knowledge based on the knowledge of his knowledge based on the evidences he derived his knowledge from. But what about the ihtiyat? Ihtiyat we are doing because we don't know, maybe this is required and maybe this is not required. So I'm confused between wajib or not wajib. There is a probability it may be wajib. Khalas, do ihtiyat. So ihtiyat is an intellectual obligation, intellectual choice from one of the choices. If you don't know through ijtihad, if you don't know through taqlid, then you have to not know by ihtiyat, no. You have to take precautionary measures on the doubtful components. Okay? So this is what he's saying here. وَلَيْسَ الْإِحْتِيَاطُ مُنَجِّزًا لِلْوَاقِعِ بِوَجْهٍ. Ihtiyat is not evidence. Ihtiyat is not knowledge. Ihtiyat is a precautionary measure. How can a precautionary measure, okay, makes the reality, doubtful reality, something which is you would be held accountable for? Does not do like that. Ihtiyat is a probability. Lima sayati, as it will be explained further. من أن الأحكام الواقعية, the real laws, because the evidence reflects the real law, indicates that there's a real law. So أحكام الواقعية إنما here in the precautionary measures إنما تنجزت بالعلم الإجمالي أو بالاحتمال لمكان الشبهة قبل الفحص. Okay, so here when you have doubtful situation, before you investigate, it's a doubtful situation. So if you investigate the authenticity of the sources of doubt, then it becomes ilm, tafsili. Okay, one of the areas becomes wajib. I have 2 cups. I'm doubting. And so I ask somebody, which one has alcohol? He says, this one is alcohol. Finish. Now this one becomes munajjaz, not by ihtiyat. No, it becomes munajjaz by somebody telling me and giving me knowledge that this cup is the one you need to avoid. You must avoid as a fatwa. It is haram to drink from that cup. So this is something which is ihtiyat being ilm ijmali, the confused elements being specified. No, this portion. So this portion becomes doubtful. Okay, this one is alcohol. So this one, maybe there is, maybe there's no. So you can drink it. But this one, no, you have to avoid because now it has become munajjaz. So he says, إنما تنجزت. Here in the case of ihtiyat, okay, why do we say this? It is munajjaz. Ilm al-ijmali is munajjaz because there is ilm there. There is knowledge. One of these two components are najis. So if you drink both of these cups, definitely you have done haram. Definitely you have gone against the reality, waqi'. Okay? So he says, in the doubtful situation with the knowledge on it, إنما تنجزت بالعلم الإجمالي أو بالاحتمال, either with the probability it became obligatory, or either by the ilm ijmali, knowledge with two components. So probability, remember, if you have doubt that am I obligated to do this wajib or not, so based on the maslak haqq ta'a, based on Sayyid al-Khui's direction, you have to do it. You see, using precaution. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deserves from us every type of responsibility, be it based on knowledge, based on doubt, based on ilm al-ijmali, everything. Unless if Allah tells us, or the religious evidences tells us, that I am not interested in the doubt, in the basic doubt, or every type of doubt. So we have evidences that basic doubts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exempt. But we don't have evidence that doubt with knowledge, ilm ijmali, Allah has given up. So in taqlid, what happens? Either I see mujtahideen, one mujtahid says wajib, one mujtahid says mustahab. So I don't know which one is according to the reality. So I don't get the knowledge of waqi', the reality. All what I do is take my responsibility as a precautionist and avoid and perform thinking that it is wajib. I don't have certainty. If I had certainty, then I'm mujtahid, or I'm doing taqlid. But I don't have certainty. So if there's no certainty, so how can we say that it is munajjaz in reality? Because I don't know in reality what the rule is. Wajib, then it is munajjaz, accountability, gives it me accountability, okay, on the day of judgment, because in reality. And if it is there's no knowledge, then I don't know that it is munajjaz or not munajjaz. So it says, إِنَّمَا تَنَجَّزَتْ بِالْعِلْمِ الْإِجْمَالِي. Ihtiyat makes what? Makes tanjeez of the doubtful components. أو بالاحتمال لمكان الشبهة قبل الفحص. See, the confused state before gaining the knowledge. After gaining the knowledge, ihtiyat is not needed. Because ihtiyat is when you choose not to follow, not to become mujtahid, not to gain knowledge. When you choose not to do taqlid, then ihtiyat becomes obligatory as one of the options to relieve yourself from the responsibility. لمكان الشبهة قبل الفحص. قبل الفحص means before finding out, okay, before discovering the reality. But until, before you do taqlid, before you become mujtahid, before that, if you are not doing taqlid, if you don't have any scholar to ask or something like that, you have confusion, then you are going to do ihtiyat. Okay? But after you find out, ihtiyat, the rule of ihtiyat drops down. So that's number one, before you find out. Or no, you are a mujtahid, أو لوجود الإمارات القائمة عليها في مظانها كما سيأتي. So there are narrations which indicate the obligation, but I don't know how strong these narrations are. Excuse me. Imarat is not like Emirate Airways or United Arab Emirates, because Emirate Airways, they call it Imaratiyya. United Arab Emirates, they call it Al-Imarat Al-Arabiyyah Al-Muttahida. Here, Imarat means the evidences. Okay? Imarat means evidence. أو لوجود الإمارات القائمة عليها في مظانها. So there are certain evidences indicating doubt, okay? Indicating certain direction. There are certain indicators So what are the indicators? Either ayat of the Quran, either hadith. So these are indicators of religious ruling. But I'm not sure, for example, you are a mujtahid, you have these imarat, but you cannot come to a precise conclusion. Like our mujtahideen, they have imarat, they have certain evidences. But due to the arguments around these evidences, they can't give a precise fatwa. And if you recall, a mujtahid cannot give a fatwa without knowledge. Because if he does, then he will have to choose his place in hellfire. من أفتى بغير علم فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. So our maraja, especially the cautious maraja, the God-fearing, God-loving, God-cautious maraja, if they have single doubt in the evidence, they will not give fatwa. Many people, they say, oh, the maraja, they just have the hobby to give fatwa and make our lives miserable. Baba, you don't know. The marja does not want to give fatwa. But if he finds clear evidence and clear directions, he's compelled. The marja feels, Ya Allah, the lesser fatwa I give, the lesser my burden will be on the day of judgment. So he's not has a hobby of giving fatwa and make our life miserable. No. If you find fatwa, like for example, say this Sistani, you see, gives a lot of ihtiyat because he doesn't want to give fatwa. And he has little bit shade or little bit doubt in the evidence. He will just bypass the fatwa and plug it with ihtiyat, obligatory precaution haram, obligatory precaution wajib. So he doesn't want to give fatwa. But when the evidences are imarat are clear, then indications, then he has to give fatwa. But whenever he finds room to get away from fatwa, even like little bit of doubt, proper doubt, not but to run away from fatwa, that's another issue. No, because he has to be faithful with the community. So if the leader or the evidence is shady, he will not give fatwa. That's guaranteed. So what will he do? Will he make it halal? No, it depends. If that it's the strength of obligation is still there in the hadith, but it's not very decisive, he will give you ihtiyat. Do it. But if we say there's so much shady around the evidences, so much, it's so shady, so much issues around the evidence, then he will tell you, you don't have to do ihtiyat. So you see where the marja has to decide fatwa, ihtiyat wajib or ihtiyat haram, or no, ihtiyat mustahab, that means you can leave it. So this is the thing that he says, that either the situation is ilm al-ijmali, before investigating, before finding out either wajib, either not wajib, either haram, either not haram. So he says, limakan shubha, because it has confusion before fahs, yani before investigating, before finding out, before the examination. So he did not examine the narration. But if he examined, then he has the decisive direction. Or he says, لوجود الإمارات القائمة عليها في مظانها. There are evidences, they indicating certain things, but it pushes the mujtahid or the marja to use the precautionary measure. So they're not so clear, not so strong, not so straightforward. كما تأتي الإشارة إليها. So فالأحكام متنجزة قبل وجوب الاحتياط لا أنها تنجست بسببه. So now the question comes, okay, now احتياط makes like علم الإجمالي. We said it's munajjas. Why? Because it has knowledge. But the doubtful components, we don't know. But because there is ilm, we have to do both. We have to do this precautionary measure. So now, does precaution makes the tanjeez, makes the accountability, or no, they are already there. The ihtiyat discovers it, or at least helps us avoid the accountability or the punishment. So he says, فالأحكام متنجزة قبل وجوب الاحتياط. Before the ihtiyat makes it wajib, They're already wajib in the reality. Okay? فالأحكام متنجزة. Why? If it was not mutanajjiza, a mujtahid would not reach to conclusion that it is the ilm, because the mujtahid was able to discover the knowledge, or taqlid was able to discover the knowledge of mujtahid, and knowledge is munajjiz, holds heavy weight of accountability. So it says فالأحكام متنجزة or متنجزة قبل وجوب الإحكام. The rulings, they imply accountability. Okay, it has accountability embedded, the rulings, Islamic ruling. But when after obligation of ihtiyat, after we go into confusion, state of confusion, no. Or after I don't choose ihtiyat and taqlid, taqlid and ijtihad, no. It doesn't have anything to do with ihtiyat. Before ihtiyat, the moment you find out that there is an indication or evidence indicating something might be wajib, that means might be munajjiz, might hold the accountability it is. So it's there, the accountability is there with the ruling. However, I'm having problem in discovering the ruling. So that's why I'm using precautionary measure. So that means if I don't use precautionary measure and don't do it based on maslak haqq ta'a, I'll be held accountable on the day of judgment. What does that mean? That means that doubtful thing is munajjaz. There is tanjeez on it. The punishment is munajjaz on it. Okay? فالأحكام متنجزة قبل وجوب الاحتياط. The ahkam, they make something mutanajjaz, okay, or munajjiziyya before the obligation of the ihtiyat. Once I find out, that's it. لا أنها تنجزت بسببه. They did not become munajjiz the moment ihtiyat became obligatory. No. Ihtiyat is giving us a route which indicates the probability of tanjeez before ihtiyat. So ihtiyat is telling us, guys, there is tanjeez, there is a probability, okay? Just do it. So ihtiyat is pushing me because there is a probability of tanjeez associated with the ruling. And there's no other option for me to get out of it. So that means here he says the ihtiyat is not a munajjiz. Ihtiyat discloses the tanjeez, the probable tanjeez. So therefore, ihtiyat is not based on evidence. Ihtiyat is trying to see this evidence is authentic or not authentic. The evidence which is associated with tanjeez. It's trying to give us that kind of notion. Okay? So basically, the ihtiyat is product of dalil aqli, not dalil shar'i. And ihtiyat is trying to tell us, since there is dalil shar'i and we are not sure that it is authentic or not, so we are going to do ihtiyat. That means we are going to use precautionary measure, because you have not chosen to do ijtihad, you have not chosen to do taqlid. So we are going to let you take this route and take the precautionary measure for that tanjeez to be fulfilled. So ihtiyat is not munajjiz. Ihtiyat is telling you to take that measure which there is a probability of tanjeez to be fulfilled, and you will not be held accountable on the day of judgment. So that's why he says فلا معنى للوجوب الطريقي بمعنى المنجزية فيه. There is ihtiyat does not hold munajjiziyya. So there is no reason to consider ihtiyat tariqi. Why ihtiyat does not hold in this area munajjiziyya? Because ihtiyat has you have discovered that there is a rule which is doubtful. There is an evidence, imara, which tells you that this may be wajib, like Salat al-Jum'ah. So that means ihtiyat tells us, try to fulfill that tanjeez. I am not munajjiz. That doubtful thing is munajjiz. You will be held accountable if you will not do that doubtful thing. Or follow marja', okay, who has reached to conclusion that Jum'ah is not wajibah. Or follow marja' who says Jum'ah is wajibah. Or you discover by ijtihad. If you have not become mujtahid, you are not doing taqlid, then you have to relieve yourself from that probable tanjeez, doubtful accountability, doubtful punishment. So this was about munajjiziyya, okay, accountability. What about excusability? Does ihtiyat give me the component to be excused, to be pardoned? Okay, he says the same thing goes here. Because whenever there is something wajib, we have aspect of accountability, aspect of excusability. Munajjiziyya, mu'adhiriyya. If munajjiziyya is not embedded in ihtiyat, how can mu'adhiriyya be embedded in ihtiyat? They both are two sides of one coin, which is knowledge. Knowledge, if you have knowledge, your knowledge is accountable. If you have knowledge something is haram and you go against, then you will be held accountable on the day of judgment. Munajjiziyya. If you have knowledge that this is not haram or you drank it, then on the day of judgment, you realize it was haram, you can say, Ya Allah, I did not know. So you will have the excusability side of knowledge. So knowledge is a coin which two faces, munajjiziyya and mu'adhiriyya. So if munajjiziyya is not applicable in ihtiyat, how can mu'adhiriyya be applicable? Because it is not based on evidence. It is an intellectual choice, intellectual obligation you have to take if you do not observe taqlid and ijtihad. So he says, كما لا معنى له بمعنى المعذرية. Knowledge has two sides of, knowledge is a coin that has two sides, mu'adhiriyya and munajjiziyya, excusability and excusability. He says, ihtiyat is not that coin. Ihtiyat doesn't have those two sides. Ihtiyat is trying to relieve you from the things which are associated with those things, because you don't have knowledge. If you had knowledge, then ihtiyat is not needed. Ihtiyat is saliba bintifa al-mawdu'. We are talking about wujub tariqi and wujub mawdu'i. If there is knowledge, we don't have knowledge there. So لا معنى له بمعنى المعذرية لأنه لا يتصور في الاحتياط مخالفة للواقع ليكون وجوبه معذرا. يعني in احتياط, are you 100% going against the reality? No. If I had known the reality, it would have been ilm. It would have been either ijtihad or taqlid. But since I don't know, I don't have the knowledge, I'm using ihtiyat. So your knowledge is mu'adhar. Your knowledge is going to give you pardon and excuse, not ihtiyat. Ihtiyat is not knowledge. Same like this. Remember, again I repeat, knowledge is a coin with two sides. Munajjiziyya, accountability, punishment. Mu'adhiriyya, excusability. Okay? So if you know it is haram and you do it, Allah will set proof against you. And if you don't know it's haram and you drank it, you can set proof to Allah that, Ya Allah, I did not know, and you had pardoned those who do not know. So excuse in excuse, accountability, excusability. He says, similarly, the way we said that ihtiyat does not have the aspect of accountability, the ihtiyat does not have the aspect of excusability. The component which ihtiyat is being worked on, doubtful component, that is which might have the accountability or not. So if you do not observe ihtiyat, you may be held accountable on the day of judgment, and you may have an excuse on the day of judgment. Not ihtiyat, the thing which you are going to perform ihtiyat, like Salat al-Jum'ah, or the drink which is doubtful, and all those kind of things. So let me complete it because our time is over. لأنه لا يتصور في الاحتياط You cannot picture in precaution when you go against the reality. So it will be, it is wajib, it's obligatory, so you will be pardoned. Okay, there's no knowledge here. We are doing ihtiyat due to the lack of knowledge. So ihtiyat is a secondary option. You don't have knowledge, you don't have ijtihad, you don't have taqlid, so then you are doing ihtiyat. These knowledge areas, they have munajjizi and mu'adhiriya, not ihtiyat. Ihtiyat is when you go to stage 1, stage 2, you don't have, then you go to stage 3, and then you don't have knowledge. So if there's no knowledge, there is no aspect of mu'adhiriya and munajjiziyya. لأنه لا يتصور, it cannot be imagined, it cannot be pictured that في الاحتياط مخالفة للواقع, when you are going to do precautionary, when you are going to leave احتياط, you are going to definitely go against the واقع. There's no ilm. Okay, ليكون وجوبه معذرا, or vice versa. You see, I did احتياط and I avoided something which was, let's say, I want to say some kind of example that we can apply here, that I'm excused. Let's say you had two components, either qasr or tamam. That's a good example. Okay, so what should I do? So I chose, if I choose one, I may be held accountable for other, and I may be pardoned because I did the component. So here you may be pardoned. So there is an aspect of mu'adhiriyya. But then this is when ilm al-ijmali comes in, doubtful two components. So he said, but the problem is, ihtiyat, that is not knowledge. So that there has mu'adhiriyya in it. لأنه عبارة عن إتيان الواقع على وجه القطع. When you perform the real law, which is based on knowledge, and you go against it, that's where this mu'adhiri and munajjiziyya comes, when going against the real law, not the doubtful law, the law which you have certainty, the law which you have knowledge, qata', not on doubt. والبت القدح والبت فلا تتحقق فيه مخالفة الواقع أبدا. We cannot say you went against the reality 100%. We can only say that if you have knowledge, but you don't have knowledge, you have doubt. So how can I say you went against the knowledge 100%? So إذن لا معنى. Okay, let me see the. إذا لا معنى محصل للوجوب الطريقي في الاحتياط. This was all about احتياط. Inshallah, we are going to discuss the aspect of اجتهاد تقليد being طريقي or not in our next session, inshallah. And as I said, I'm traveling, so you have to excuse me. I have the aspect of excusability, mu'adhiriya, but still I gave the session, alhamdulillah. I was afraid I may miss it. So I have the janib al-mu'adhiriya now, otherwise I may have janib al-munajjiziyya. But now, alhamdulillah, Allah helped me, 12th Imam supported that I was able to give in my traveling this session. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay, so I can give you 5 minutes